where we put you on the map. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live from the Mappable USA studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. And folks, today we're going to talk about we're going to teach you how to do a crowdfunding campaign and do it successfully. How about that? It's easy, right? Well, not so much. There's a lot of things to worry about. So before we get into that, let's introduce Vicky Hutchmala from the World Token Market. Vicky, how are you doing today?
Doing fabulous as always, Ron. Great day in Vegas. We have an interesting point of view for crowdfunding. We're going to talk about its various aspects with a new guest that has not been on our podcast before. So should be interesting. It'll be fun, and let's get started.
Well, with that, let's introduce Shane Liddell. He's the CEO of Smart Crowdfunding. Shane, how's it going over there today with you?
Hello, Ron and Vicky. Hi. Thanks for having me on your show. Things are going well, thank you. A bit hot being in Florida, but all good.
It's always good, right? As long as you're above the ground, it's a good thing.
And you probably don't have to wear a mask, right, Shane?
It depends where you are. There are still places that are recommending that you wear a mask, hotels.
Yeah.
But there's lots of people. People haven't been wearing masks here for quite some time. I think they lifted the mandate a little while back.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm really interested in this podcast topic because, you know, crowdfunding. Everyone wants to do it. Everybody hears about it. Very few do it really well and successful, and it should be successful if you go through all the points. We're going to talk about that a little bit down the road. But before we do that, Shane, can you give our audience a little bit of background on yourself and how you got to be where you are, and how you started the Smart Crowdfunding company?
Sure, Ron. I got into the crowdfunding industry really by mistake. I'd spent time living in South Africa, and I'm very much into wildlife. A sanctuary in South Africa reached out, more or less desperation. This was 2012. As you know, recovering from the recession, or we were still in it. They lost their sponsors. They were going to have to euthanize some of their animals. And I discovered a platform called Indiegogo prior to me speaking to the sanctuary. And I said, and we successfully managed to raise $20,000. They had a $10,000 funding goal. I'm sure you guys know that dollars go quite far in South Africa when you convert it into rands because of the exchange rate. So that's really how I dipped my toe into the water, so to speak. And I saw an opportunity. I researched, found another platform called Kickstarter. The two platforms I mentioned run reward-based campaigns. What are reward-based campaigns? They are campaign contribute to pre-order new technology, for example, or new gadget that's being manufactured, or they're attempting to bring it to market. And that's really where the crowdfunding industry started to get. So, my background has, since then, I've been involved with a lot of campaigns. I've been very much hands-on in the trenches, working together with these clients over the period of their campaign. And at one point, we had 27 to 30 clients. That's how quickly things started to take off. The industry, of course, has grown at a huge rate, very fast rate. And, I've seen a lot. I've seen many of the players come into the market. Some come in, some leave. Traditional marketing companies come into the space. They don't understand it. They focus on things like pay-per-click, and pay-per-click is expensive. So going back to my history in the business, I had to shoot by running campaigns with clients and beginning to understand how these platforms work. A lot of them use algorithms to rank campaigns based on various metrics and so on. And 21, of course, I knew equity crowdfunding was coming to market. I was very much looking at the radar and seeing when it's going to happen. As you know, we launched equity crowdfunding here in the U.S. The regulation crowdfunding, as they refer to it, as on May 16th, 2016, and I've seen the growth that everybody's seen. It's an exciting industry to work in. Raising money is hard. I need your audience to understand that no stroll in the park. And, you know, as I said, here I am today. We've run equity crowdfunding campaigns since 2018. We've raised a maximum of $40 million for one client. We had our first $1 million campaign in 2014, and we've worked with over 1,000 clients since we started. We've moved away from reward-based crowdfunding and focused specifically on equity crowdfunding marketing. I'm a consultant. I do try to get clients pre-platform because in a lot of cases, these platforms are not suitable for a particular client. Of course, I'd have to go into the reasoning for that, and I don't want to take up too much time focusing on that. Today, as I mentioned, Smart Crowdfunding, we've focused exclusively really on equity campaigns. We've done Reg D campaigns, 506C, Reg CF, and we are making sure that all of the tools in our toolbox are in order before we then move on to Regulation A+ campaigns.
Well, there's so many different kinds of crowdfunding vehicles. How do you help your clients decide which is the best for them, and how do you go about doing that?
Well, we go through it. Look, for example, if it's a real estate client or they want to acquire real estate using the funds raised through a crowdfunding campaign, there's specific platforms to put them on that are real estate focused. Type products, tech companies that are going to raise capital, they are specific platforms that are more suitable for tech-type campaigns. So, you know, it's really what the client is trying to achieve. We all know what they're trying to achieve, raise money, but there are many other things involved. Look, brand awareness, of course, running a crowdfunding campaign, pushing out your messaging, your communications, of course, adds to brand value. So it's not just a case of, well, shall we pick that because it's a real estate portal, for example, platform, for example. There's a little bit more thinking goes into it, whereby we agree on both sides of the desk. The client agrees, and we give them reasons to agree to go with a recommendation. But at the end of the night, and you know, the different flavors of platforms and portals. If we look at Reg CF today, there are already 62 portals out there. So there's a lot of choice. Knowing who is really key, I think. And that is most beneficial to potential issue, but knowing who's who.
Well, you know, I've said it before, I'll probably say it again and again, that regardless of what vehicle you use, if you're going to do any kind of raise of capital, you need to do marketing, and you need to do marketing before you ever launch your campaign to make sure that there's people out there who want to buy whatever widget it is you have to sell. So if a client comes to you, will you help them do the pre and the marketing beforehand, during, and afterwards so that they get the best impact for their launch?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, let me just highlight the importance of preparing for a crowdfunding campaign. If I go back to the early 2013, 2012, 2013 period, people were launching crowdfunding campaigns on the reward platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo just on the fly. They wouldn't do any preparation. They'd do their graphics for the page, of course, and that was it. And they were under the impression that the portal is going to do everything for them. However, today, within...
Yeah, it's not a miracle.
Yes, they assume that, oh, well, if we go to Start Engine, or we go to Refunder, or we go to one of these bigger platforms, that, pay your money and that's it. And, of course, that's what I refer to as unrealistic expectations. And in most cases, they fail. The correct way to crowdfund is this, right? Forget about building campaign pages and all that. That's something that comes right at the end. The very first thing you need to do is identify who you're going to look for. Real estate investors will generally not invest in a tech company. So if you're a real estate company going crowdfunding, we have to target them as one group. And, of course, we go through a process where we're brainstorming and developing a list of targets that we're going to reach out to. So that's what we take. If you get that part wrong, it can have really bad effects further down the line. So we focus more so on educating the client to get to the understanding of the importance of pre-launch and testing the waters, which is TTW. Pre-launch for us, and every company operates different as a marketing agency, pre-launch for us means building your marketing stack. What do I mean by stack? I mean building all the tools and services to use for your campaign. So we go through, as I mentioned, a brainstorming session. We identify a platform we're going to go onto with the client. We go through first step, as I mentioned, pre-launch. Pre-launch, really, we're testing everything. We're basically running some ads. We're using copy. We're doing a lot of testing of, and of course, we're measuring the data, looking at the numbers. And we've got a system whereby we know that we need a minimum of 21 days of data idea as to how things are going to unfold going forward. So, as I mentioned, pre-launch, building and testing the tools that you're going to be marketing with, testing the waters, generating expressions of interest is really what that means. It means you can use other methods, in fact, to collect interested investors into a database with the hope that they're going to invest into your live campaign. There's no money exchanged during that period of pre-launch and testing the waters. Testing the waters involves building subscriber lists. Most people will obviously straight away think of email. Yes, that's one. We use several other tools to build lists, subscriber databases or investor databases, so that when you go live, you know that you have at least a database of interested investors that are going to invest into your campaign. However, reality is this. You will get around about 30% of those that you in your database from testing the waters. You'll only get 30% of them that will actually invest in a campaign. That's the latest number we've seen. I've heard it elsewhere. And so, you can't rely on that alone. What we do is we put our investors or the client's potential investors through an investor funnel. We call it an investor journey. Instead of trying to sell them the offer from day one, we take them on an educational process. We're educating them about the client, about the team. We do a lot of personal branding outreach so that these investors, by the time we go live with a campaign, not only do they know who the issuer is, but they've had ample time to do their due diligence and in some cases drop out of the investor funnel, so that by the time we get to launch, we know that the people in the database are more than likely going to invest in the offer. Now, that is different. I say that's different because a lot of these issuers go out there, they skip the pre-launch, they depend on a port, and then they run their campaign for 4 or 5 days, and then my phone rings. And then they're asking, can you help us? It's not an ideal situation for either us as a support service or the issuer to be in. And I'll tell you why I'm reluctant to join these kind of campaigns. It's purely because we can't make up for the things the issuer didn't do that they should have done.
Right.
Did I answer your question, Vicki?
I think you did, Shane. And you know, people need to understand your clients when you're contemplating crowdfunding, whatever it is and whatever you do. The stronger your foundation, the more homework you do ahead of time, the more likely when you finally go live and launch it, the more successful it's going to be. And what's important, and I heard from what you just said, was that you're hands-on with the client. So through the process, you're educating them and you're teaching them the process so that not only do they know what you're doing for them, but they understand the process so that they can contribute to what's happening and also add to the success of the campaign in the end.
Correct.
I think that's great.
Yes, and you know, I need to say this. Most issuers are not prepared financially. It's easy to put marketing outreach into place and to execute a pre-written plan, and they don't have the budget to go out and run a campaign. Now, we see this all the time, and see it by how little funding some of these campaigns raise. They go on a shoestring. They can cover the portal costs. That means getting them on the platform, onboarding them, and so on. And when it comes to marketing the actual offer, they run out of money. Or they're just running PPC campaigns at astronomical investor acquisition costs. Pre-launch has several benefits. I think you understand them, Vicki and Ron, in that preparation is key.
Absolutely.
You know, getting a good start reduces, and I think it's fairly easy to, if I take a campaign and get a good start, let's assume here we want to raise $1 million, and let's assume like day 2 or 3 we've raised $400K, and then things slow down. If I then kick in the marketing or scale the marketing at that point, because this was in the campaign, it makes it more attractive to potential investors because there's some validation there. In turn, that reduces your investor acquisition cost. Why? Because when you're running ads, let's say we're running ads on Facebook for a client, you don't need as many click-throughs to your offer page to get investments because people see the funding, the $400,000, and that's an incentive for them. That, hey, others are doing this. I want to join in. So, you know, the benefit, getting back to the benefits of pre-launch and testing the waters, I think you're starting to picture there are multiple benefits to going through pre-launch. And it reduces, as I mentioned, your investor acquisition costs dramatically.
Absolutely.
For the reasons I've just mentioned.
Well, can you give us a ballpark of what a client might need to get started and to get through to the launch?
Yeah, I mean, from a cost point of view, it depends what the client has. I've had clients come to us in the pharmaceutical industry, for example. They've raised and so on and so forth, but they don't have any social. In fact, one client sticks out. They had nothing. They had no social followers, no email database, no nothing. Now, of course, when a client comes to us with a blank page, there's a lot more work involved in getting them to the point
Right.
or to the start line. So it is really dependent on what the client has and what they bring to the table. But I'm going to give you some rough numbers. Look, to raise $1 million through Reg CF, you're going to need to spend probably around $40,000 to $60,000. The bulk of that will be for your advertising, digital advertising campaign, running your digital ads with the live offer. The preparation part, yes, the cost involved, that goes around about 10 to 20,000, as I mentioned, depending on what the client brings. But I would say this: I recommend that everybody who goes raising money through regulation crowdfunding, Reg CF, should have at least $25,000 in the pot. Now, you can burn through that very quickly. Some are a rolling close, what they call a rolling close. What that means is, in fact, if you look around at the portal right now, you will see some campaigns have minimum funding goals of $25,000, but their target funding goal is $1 million. Why do they have a minimum of $5,000? Because once they trigger that $25,000 in closed investments, some of the funding can be released from escrow. They can then take some of that funding from escrow and pump a portion of it back into marketing the offer. So you don't have dollars to get started. However, you cannot do it on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, because why go through the process if you're going to have to stop halfway through because you run out of money? You need, it's that same old saying that you need money to make money, and you need a little more than you think you need just to make sure you have enough.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as we know, too many people don't seem to get that message. And you look, if people come to me and they say, Shane, we've got 10 grand raised 500,000, of course, it's not enough. My advice to them is, well, put things on hold, go out and find it. If family and friends don't want to give you money, then maybe your project isn't suitable for a crowdfunding platform, or your business might not be suitable for the market. These are hard truths here. And I actually have a bit of a reputation in the industry as I speak my mind. I tell it how it is. I believe you had Mr. Irwin Stein on your program or on your podcast a little while ago. I'm in the same camp in that I believe it's beneficial for clients to hear the truth instead of marketing and promotional, in some cases, nonsense. To hook the clients onto a portal or another platform to get it on their offer there. Platforms do take commissions, by the way. They range between 5-7.5%. Some. So they have an interest in bringing clients to the portal. Of course, they charge fees when the clients join portals, but they're not marketing companies. People need to understand portals are not marketing businesses in that they're not campaign marketing businesses. They're actually in the business of being an intermediary. And one thing that really grates me is I do believe that portals can do a better job of educating potential issuers on the costing side. Right, you're going to need this amount of dollars to be able to execute. So that's something I'm focusing on, trying to get the message out there that, failure is failure. And, lots of people say, oh, well, failure is a good thing. Well, when it comes to crowdfunding, I don't believe it is a good thing. And there are many campaigns that I classify in the failure category, irrespective of whether they reach their minimum funding goal. It's based purely on what were they hoping to raise. Did they raise it? If they're hoping to raise $1 million and they raise 300, that's not a successful crowdfunding campaign and nothing to shout about. And I believe that others look at it like that too. If your company goes crowdfunding and fails, as I've just described, other people, potential clients, obviously see it, and I don't think it sends out the right signals to any investors, customers, or future customers down the line.
Yeah, you made a lot of really good points there, Shane. One in particular that really kind of irks me is a lot of these CEOs think that once they put their deal up on one of these platforms, they could just sit back and watch the investor money come in, because there are so many people go to these platforms and there's all these investors and they don't even have to do any marketing. It's incredible. And then when they fail that way, they're, it's like deer in the headlights. How did that happen? So you're right. They have to understand that that's just it's a part of the process. But what I really think is really interesting about this conversation is that, to me, the takeaway here is the biggest indicator of a crowdfunding campaign success is everything that you do before the project is actually even launched.
100%, Ron. Not many people can, and I wish they would, because you've just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. And, the CEOs, getting back to these CEOs too, they're really visionary people, and they're really smart people, and they develop this company from scratch a lot of times, and they just think that they have it all down. And when you tell them that marketing is so important, a lot of them are really bad marketers, and they don't get it. They don't understand that this, like you said, they can't be done on a shoestring. You have to put some dollars towards marketing. You got to do some kind of a testing or testing the waters or something out there to make sure that your product is out there that's marketable, that people are going to invest in to begin with. So, these are points that everyone has to understand. I think you really hit it home with that, what you're saying earlier on this. It's just, it's stuff that it seems intuitive, but not many people get it. So
another problem we have. Sorry, Ron, to interrupt you.
That's right.
I was going to say another problem that I see out there is these people going crowdfunding, and they are tech people, for example. Let's give you an example. Three of the founders are technical people. They're developers, and they have nothing, and they go onto a portal, and of course we know what the result is before they start. That is a problem in the industry, that the skill set is not within the team. And as I mentioned, 3 developers. That is an example that happens. It might not be 3 developers as founders. It might be 2 completely unrelated. Their skill sets unrelated, but they are missing certain key skills on the team. Now, we try to fill that hole, their crowdfunding campaign. However, when you have leaders of a business and not understanding the basics, it's very much a problem. So my advice also, look, do your best as an issuer to at least contract in somebody who can assist or understand the language when it comes to MarTech, marketing technology, and so on and so forth. That's another thing I think people need to focus on. It's going to make everything easier for you as you go forward. Crowdfunding is easy, right? If you follow the, as you mentioned, Ron, the key is the preparation part. The execution is the easiest part of the lot, providing you get to the start line fully prepared and your toolbox is functioning at 100% efficiency. Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And another point is that what if you do the crowdfunding wrong, and you started off and you don't spend enough money, or your message isn't out there, you didn't do the market research or something, and you put out these videos and you did these social media posts and it didn't work, and all of a sudden this client comes to you and says, Shane, help us out here. Is that client salvageable? Because first impressions mean a lot. And I know myself, I've seen some of these crowdfunding campaigns that were really, really bad, and I wouldn't touch them at all based on just what I saw out there. It makes your job twice, maybe 3 times as hard, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is possible. However, I would suggest people, if they go crowdfunding and fail, they're going to need budget to create content And, you know, the easiest way for anybody who fails at crowdfunding to really connect with their potential audience or potential customers or investors is to be transparent with them. Put out some communications. Put out a press release. This is what went wrong. We screwed it up. You know, be open. That is really the best way that you can salvage something. So a bit more trust into your potential investors.
A lot of business owners think that because they created the company, they know everything about it. And a lot of them are a little bit reluctant to listen to somebody else teaching them a new thing or showing them that they don't really know everything and they need a little help. But what you're saying, it goes back to the same thing, that the more preparation you do, the more knowledge you have, and especially, as you said, the more you can understand the language of the industry to be able to know what you don't know and then learn it, be prepared, do your due diligence, do what needs to be done ahead of time, then you're not really guaranteeing your success, but you're well on the road to success if you have more preparation ahead of time and you hire the right people. Because everybody needs a professional, because nobody, I don't care who you are, nobody knows everything about everything.
Unfortunately, what you've said there, Vicky, is really true. I've have mentioned, we've got a guy on the team. He's a marketing guy. 1973 he was in his peak, or 1980. And, of course, my attitude to that is, well, that's not really worth much today. Unless you've been involved in today, the traditional stuff is not really going to help you much.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, there's lots of things to consider. We've mentioned prelaunch. Look at a boxer. When a boxer goes into a prize fight in 3 months' time, they don't just rock up there, no training, no nothing, and let's do it. And we all know the chances of them winning are really tiny. Well, it applies the same to crowdfunding. If you want to go to a portal and say, we just did it to see if we could raise the money, that tells me that you didn't think past that. And as Ron was talking earlier, the negativity that I touched on that can come from a failed campaign, you need to think about what if. It's a what if scenario. What if we don't raise the money? What are we going to do then? And to have that plan in place before you even press the lane.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I have one more question for you, Shane, before we close things out here. I was wondering, with all these portals out there, a lot of them are offering the private label version of putting your documentation, and you're offering documents and your Invest Now buttons on your own website in a private label fashion. Do you have an opinion on whether that's a better way to go, or using the portals is better? Does it make a difference in terms of any kind of success rates?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it helps your brand because you're basically trying to drive traffic to your website, which is a good thing, of course. Let me just explain. Reg CF, this is what, and I can only be straight here. The portals rely on issuers to market their offers. What happens when issuers market their offers? In most cases, they're driving those investors directly on the portal. Where is that information captured? Into the portal database. So in other words, you're spending your marketing dollars, you're driving people to these portals, and they're going into the database of the portal, even though you also obviously have access via download all your investors and so on. So that's just something I want to bring up before I address your question there, Ron. Regulation D is a form of crowdfunding where you only raise money from accredited investors. The beauty about regulation is that you can self-host the offer. Now, self-hosting an offer brings many benefits. one is a cost benefit, of course. The second benefit is you own the data. You're spending your marketing dollars driving people to an offer, hosted on your own website, hosted on your own domain, subdomain, and that's ideal. Unfortunately, because Reg CF is highly regulated, as we know, and the rules state that it has to be, your offer has to be conducted on a registered portal, a portal that's registered. That is why we have this, what I call, conundrum. But getting back to your question, Ron, does it help having an offer, a Reg CF offer, an Invest Now button on your website? Now, I do know a player in the industry that is developing that, whereby you can run a Reg CF directly from your own domain. The gentleman's name is David Ducini. He runs Silicon Prairie, and he's developed a system whereby you can do that with Reg CF campaigns. Because prior to that, you couldn't really do that. Technically, it was difficult, and of course, you have to stay within the regulator's lines. And as you know, you cannot raise Reg CF money by yourself. It has to go through the portal. The Invest Now button basically can embed that into your website or into a page on your platform. On your website, and people click it, and what are they doing? They're really going into the back end provider that offers you the escrow or all the other financial services that you need to crowdfund. So, it's early days when it comes to Reg CF, having the ability to sort of host it on your own website. Reg D, as I mentioned, self-host. Reg A+, you can self-host. It's far more valuable to do so for the reasons I mentioned, self-hosting your offer. I don't know anybody, if you ask them the question, give me your marketing dollars, I'm going to spend it, but I'm going to send those to someone else. I don't know anybody would be too happy about that.
No.
No, I agree. But I'll tell you what, though, what they should be happy about is if they're listening to this podcast and there's an issuer out there listening to this, I think by taking your advice here and your little bits of information, we probably save them about $50,000 a piece. How about that?
Yep, and that's what that's exactly it, Ron, and that's what I try to sell, of course, with my clients, is that, look, you can do it that way or you can do it this way.
Right.
The choice is yours.
Yeah.
And
well, Vicky, Vicky, do you have any last questions you want to ask Shane here while we close this out? We're running a little bit over here.
Yeah. So.
Well, in all of that we heard today, we have another new take on crowdfunding, and I would say crowdfunding is not a miracle. It's not an overnight success. It's not something that you just go to somebody and say, I'm going to do this, and then tomorrow I'm going to have all the money I need and everything's going to be wonderful in the world. And also, there's a lot of fraudulent companies that are scamming people who are looking for money, who don't do it exactly correctly or ethically. And I think that if anything, it's hard to figure out who to go to and who not to go to, because obviously you need help in doing whatever crowdfunding raise you're trying to do. And I think by talking to Shane today, we figured out that you can eliminate a lot of stress in your life by just calling Shane, talking to him, let him help you with your crowdfunding, be a success, and let him help you, because he actually knows what he's doing. And I think that's what we brought across today. Absolutely. Call Shane, talk to Shane, and he will help you do it right the first time. How do people do that,
Shane? What's your how do people get a hold of you, Shane? What's the best way? Website, email?
Our website is smartcrowdfunding.us, Our email is info@smartcrowdfunding.us. I am on LinkedIn. My name's Shane Liddell, as you know. What I'm going to suggest, or what I'm hoping, is you're going to give me the opportunity to save your $50,000 by inviting me onto your show a bit later on, because, trying to squash everything into one call can be difficult. But I hope I've helped. I hope, and I'm sure that your audience has got some benefit out of your podcast today. I want to just say thank you again for inviting me.
Yeah? You're
it's
welcome,
our pleasure, Shane.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time out to speak to our audience today, Shane. It was a real pleasure. Vicki, thanks for co-hosting the the podcast today. And folks, you're listening to the Mappable USA podcast on MappableUSA.com. If you go to that website, you scroll down, you'll see all our syndication sources. Just pick the one you like best, subscribe, and you'll never miss another one of our episodes. And if you want to be a guest on the show, like Shane was today, there's a guest tab there. You can fill that out. We'll see what we can do about getting you on the show. If you like what you heard today, send us an email, info@MappableUSA.com, or just leave a message or a comment on whatever page you're listening to this on right now. So thanks for listening. Thanks for your support out there, and we'll be at you next time with another Mappable USA podcast. Have a great week, everyone.